My fellow Pakistanis, today the most painful question before our nation is not about enemies outside our borders, but about what has happened within. Because when power becomes unchecked and accountability disappears, even strong institutions lose their moral compass. People across Pakistan are asking why innocent citizens are being picked up, why political workers and ordinary people face violence, why voices that demand constitutional rights are crushed, and why journalists who speak truth are threatened or killed. Because fear is being used where confidence should exist. An army is meant to protect its people, not to rule them. Yet when all power, political, economic, and administrative, appears to be concentrated in unelected hands, democracy becomes meaningless, and the people feel occupied in their own country. Serious questions arise when military-linked business empires expand into housing societies, factories, agriculture, and land ownership while remaining untaxed. While the common Pakistani is crushed under inflation and indirect taxes, because no institution can claim patriotism while operating beyond accountability, people ask why governments are made and broken not by public vote, but by pressure, engineering, and force, and why decisions of national importance, such as foreign military cooperation and use of Pakistani air bases in regional wars, were taken without public consent, bringing terrorism, bloodshed, and instability to our homeland. When the state uses power to silence dissent instead of listening to it, when brutality replaces dialogue, and when fear replaces justice, then it is not strength but weakness. Because real strength comes from legitimacy and public trust. I say clearly that Pakistan's soldiers are our sons, but institutions must be servants of the Constitution, not masters of it. And the moment guns overpower votes, the nation begins to decay. This country does not belong to generals, politicians, or elites. It belongs to its people. And unless power is returned to the people, unless civilian supremacy is restored, unless every institution is brought under the law, Pakistan will continue to suffer despite its immense potential, because no nation can prosper when justice is selective, accountability is absent, and fear is used to govern its citizens. My fellow Pakistanis, today I speak to you not as a ruler seeking power, but as a citizen who has struggled his entire life to awaken a nation that was destined to rise, because history bears witness that no country is built by silence, no nation survives by fear, and no future is secured by surrender. Pakistan was not created so that a handful of powerful elites could decide the fate of 240 million people behind closed doors. It was created through sacrifice, blood, and unwavering belief that justice, dignity, and self-respect would be the foundation of our state. Yet today I ask you to look around and ask yourselves, honestly, are we living as a free nation or merely surviving under a system where power is concentrated, accountability is selective, and truth is punished? I have always believed that struggle and hard work are the lifeblood of nations, just as they are of individuals. And history teaches us that nations that rise are those where institutions serve the people rather than dominate them, where the media speaks without fear, where journalists are not silenced for asking questions, and where criticism is not treated as treason, when voices of truth are crushed, when reporters disappear or are threatened, when fear replaces debate, the soul of a nation begins to die. And I say this with pain, because Pakistan's strength has never been its weapons alone, but its people, its conscience, and its courage to speak. My journey from cricket fields to hospitals, from philanthropy to politics, has taught me that nothing worthwhile comes without sacrifice, and that standing up against injustice always comes at a cost. Yet silence costs far more, because silence hands over your future to those who operate without accountability, I believe. And I say this as a matter of principle, that no institution in Pakistan should be above the law, whether civilian or military, because nations collapse not when armies are weak, but when justice is weak, and when economic interests, land empires, and unchecked power begin to overshadow constitutional limits. Pakistan's land, resources, and strategic decisions belong to its people, not to a select few who operate in shadows, and any decision that affects our sovereignty, whether foreign military cooperation, use of air bases, or involvement in external wars, must be transparent, debated in Parliament, and accountable to the nation. Because history shows that when nations become battlegrounds for others' conflicts, it is ordinary citizens who pay the price through terrorism, instability, and economic destruction. I ask you to remember the decades we have lost, decades where poverty increased, where debt chained our future, where talent fled abroad, and where the youth lost hope, not because Pakistan lacked potential, but because corruption, fear, and power without responsibility suffocated progress. Hard work alone cannot save a nation if the system rewards loyalty over merit, silence over truth, and obedience over competence. Struggle is not merely about protest or slogans. It is about demanding a system where institutions are strong but restrained, where the army defends borders and the Constitution, where politicians serve rather than loot, where courts deliver justice without pressure, and where the media informs without intimidation. I have always said that real independence is not just waving a flag. It is the freedom to question, the freedom to choose, and the freedom to hold power accountable. And when governments become complicit, when they hide behind power rather than confront it, they betray their oath to the people. The tragedy of Pakistan has been that those with the power to change things often choose comfort over courage, deals over duty and short-term control over long-term stability. Yet history never remembers those who remained silent. It remembers those who stood firm even when the odds were against them. I speak especially to the youth of Pakistan, because you are not weak, you are not ignorant, and you are not powerless. Your greatest weapon is awareness. Your greatest strength is unity, and your greatest responsibility is refusing to accept injustice as destiny. Nations do not rise because leaders are perfect. They rise because citizens refuse to surrender their rights. I am not calling for chaos. I am calling for constitutional balance, rule of law, and moral courage. Because no nation can progress when fear dictates politics, when economic empires grow untaxed, while the poor are crushed under inflation, and when accountability is selective. Pakistan's armed forces are made up of brave sons of this soil, and their honor lies in professionalism and constitutional loyalty, not in political engineering or economic dominance, because true strength comes from public trust, not from control. The path of struggle is long and painful, but every nation that achieved dignity walked this path. And those who promise shortcuts only deliver deeper chains. I ask every Pakistani to work hard, not just for personal success, but for collective justice, to speak the truth even when it is uncomfortable, to demand transparency even when it is resisted, and to believe that change is possible, because despair is the greatest weapon of those who benefit from the status quo. My faith in Pakistan remains unshaken, because I have seen how ordinary people rise when given hope, how nations awaken when fear breaks, and how history turns when citizens decide that enough is enough. Remember, no power is permanent, no injustice lasts forever, and no nation remains enslaved once its people stand united with courage, patience, and unwavering belief in their own worth.